The story revolves around one of the most horrific and mysterious crimes in German history, specifically the one that occurred on March 31st, 1922, in Bavaria. The Gruber family, consisting of 5 members, along with their maid, were all found murdered in their farm's barn. The crime, which shook the local community and left people deeply disturbed, left behind numerous unanswered questions and a mystery that remained unsolved for many years. The investigation into the crime continued for decades, until 2007, as uncovering details grew increasingly complex over time. Many questions lingered in people's minds. Who was responsible for this heinous act? What was the connection between the mysterious voices reported and the murders? Today's case is classified as one of the most terrifying cases in Germany's history. The reason is that the crime occurred on March 31st, 1922, and the investigation continued until 2007. The investigation lasted for 85 years. Why did the matter take so long? Here is the story. Initially, on March 31st, 1922, in the German city of Bavaria, 5 members of a family named the Grubers, along with their housemaid, were murdered in their farmhouse. Their bodies were found in the farm's barn 6 months after the incident. During this period, the housemaid, who worked with the family, had been hearing strange noises in the house and on the farm. She frequently heard knocking on doors and whispering sounds, and she relayed these experiences to the family. However, they did not believe her and told her that she was imagining things and that there were no such sounds. The girl was convinced of what she heard and, due to her fear of the situation, decided to leave her job. The situation remained normal for the family until the day before the crime, when a new housemaid came to work for the Gruber family. Unfortunately, it was her first and last day, because on the same day that the new housemaid arrived, the family began to notice the things that the previous maid had mentioned. They started hearing the noises that she had talked about, and strange occurrences began happening in the house that very day. The father found a newspaper in the house that he didn't recognize, and neither he nor anyone else in the house had subscribed to it or purchased it before. They also lost a keychain that had keys to the doors of the farm. They had a designated room for tools where they kept everything they might need, from axes for chopping wood to digging equipment. On that day, the weather was snowy, with the ground completely covered in snow. They saw footprints of someone coming from the nearby forest, and these footprints led into the house. The troubling part was that there were no footprints leading back. There were signs of someone entering, but none of someone leaving. This meant that the person who had entered was still inside the home. Andreas, the father of the family, was quite surprised by the situation. He went to his neighbor, named Lawrence, and told him everything that had happened since the old housemaid had been in the house. Lawrence offered to lend him weapons to protect himself and his family, but Andreas refused, believing that it was just a coincidence, and dismissed the suggestion. That night, unfortunately, the killer was inside the house and lured the family members one by one to the barn, where he killed them with an axe. The entire family was in the barn, except for a 2-year-old child and the new housemaid, who was killed in her room. Regrettably, the police and the general public did not discover the crime until April 4th, meaning 4 or 5 days later. The reason, according to the statements of the residents in the area, was that they did not notice anything unusual at the farm. The chimneys were functioning and smoke was coming out. The animals had food and were eating, and everything seemed normal at the farm. Even the mailman came and delivered mail the day after the incident, without noticing anything suspicious in the area. The guard dog was in its place, and nothing seemed to have changed. Everything appeared to be normal. 4 days after the incident, a maintenance worker came to service the generator and tried to reach anyone in the house, but found no one. He was initially puzzled because he had an agreement with them to be present on that day. However, since nobody answered the door, he decided to go ahead and fix the machine because the generator was located outside the house, and he didn't need access to the interior or an explanation from the homeowner, as he was already familiar with everything and had arranged to come. After fixing the machine, he noticed a dog tied at the front door. The dog hadn't been there when he first arrived, and seeing the dog made him think that someone must be inside the house. He knocked on the door, but nobody answered. He then decided to go to their neighbor, Lawrence, since he was the closest. He explained the situation to Lawrence and mentioned that the dog was inside the house and suddenly was outside, asking him to inform them when he saw them that he had repaired the machine. Lawrence went to the Gruber farm to check on them and to tell them that the maintenance worker had been there. As soon as he arrived at the farm, he knocked on the door, but no one answered. He walked a bit and noticed that the barn door was open. When he went inside, he discovered the bodies of 4 family members. He then entered the house to see if anyone was there, and oddly enough, there were indeed signs that people had been in the house. There was a fire burning, and it appeared that someone had been eating in the kitchen, but there was no one else in the house, only the 4 corpses. He rushed out of the farm and contacted the police. When the police arrived, they examined the bodies and discovered that the individuals had been dead since March 31st. The police began their investigations, questioning people and searching, but they did not find any leads. The primary suspect was their neighbor Lawrence, for several reasons. The first reason was that he was the one who reported the crime and had seen the bodies. They wondered why he wouldn't be the perpetrator himself and communicated with the police to clear any suspicion against him. The second reason was that he was the closest person to them in the area in terms of proximity. The third reason was that Lawrence had once proposed to Andreas's daughter and had been rejected, which could have motivated him for revenge. However, they could not charge him with the crime, primarily because there was someone living in the house who was tending the fire and feeding the animals. At the same time, Lawrence had witnesses who confirmed that he was in his home and did not leave during that time. Therefore, he could not be proven guilty, and the investigation continued until 2007 without any results, with no one found guilty of the crime. This crime left deep scars on the local community. Over the years, this incident continued to evoke curiosity and interest, symbolizing the terror that a community can experience due to violent crimes. This case is remembered as one of the most horrific crimes that occurred in Germany, emphasizing the fragility of human life. It shows that Some secrets of the past may remain buried for years, but they continue to haunt minds and seek answers. Today's question is, what is the relationship between those mysterious sounds and the murders?